I said, we're really excited to have Chris here. And if you could, just to cut down background noise, if you could go ahead and mute your phone from your side. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Actually, good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. Delighted you could join us. I think that, first of all, the overall theme of this presentation today can probably be summed up in one word, and that's empowerment. And that's empowerment for attraction guests, for family travelers, and the attractions themselves. It's a theme that you'll see that will run throughout each of the findings presented today. And while empowered consumers are probably not necessarily a new trend to you as attraction managers or anyone else, many attractions are finding new ways to act upon that power. And attractions are also finding new ways to cater to them and to act on their own new capabilities. I'm going to start with a trend that's probably become increasingly noticeable in recent years and really just been beginning to be acted upon, what I'll call the empowered child. And having just returned last night from my own family vacation, having an experience that I can relate that is closely associated to this trend. So a few months ago, being someone who loves market research and family travel, only child, our 13-year-old daughter, weigh in on our summer family travel planning. And I presented her with a list of 21 different travel features, activities, and attractions, and then had her rank them from 1 to 21. And though I would not do that in the real world, 21 choices is way too many. But after a few minutes, she returned the survey to me. Of course, her top choices were a nice hotel to stay in and a variety of good restaurants. There at the top of the screen. So if she's a very girl, obviously that's something I enjoy. But 13 after all, and so her open-ended answer to other at the very bottom there was awesomeness, and that's with 6 S's, if you will. So I am as guilty of empowering my child to influence our travel planning as anybody. Now, you can call me a weak parent. Yes, that's probably true. But as it turns out, apparently is much of the rest of America. I have 2 really good partners that I've done a lot of work with over the years, PGA Destinations and H2R Marketing Research, both of whom are out of Missouri. And last year they published a study called The Art of the Family Vacation, which was a terrific summary of a number of different trends. And one of the things that was apparent in this research is that that was very evident was that as many as 62% of families, so over 6 out of 10 families with teenagers at home, report that children play a significant role in travel decision making. Now, this trend was also highest among families, as you can see there, traveling families in the West and the South for some reason. Still nearly as high as 5 out of 10 families in the Midwest and the East reported that their kids had a significant role in travel planning. And so, again, I'm not alone in this at all. This trend extends very much to the planning for visiting attractions and planning activities as well. And in the same study, 3/4 of all parents reported that their children played at least some role in the planning to visit attractions on their last trip, and half said that they were substantially involved in the planning for that. And there's a separate slide for this, but I'll also say that the research also demonstrated that 7 out of 10 parents, 70%, reported that their child actively assisted in the plan to visit an attraction. So a very substantial number of family travelers and parents reporting that their children are very involved in this. So if we look at participation in planning attraction visits by both sex and age of the child, we see some trends. Naturally, of course, older kids are going to be more likely likely to be involved in planning an attraction visit. That's probably not too surprising, with more than 8 out of 10 children who are 8 years of age and older being engaged. But I think what's fascinating to me is that many parents reported that their kids as young as 2 or 3 or 4 years old are involved in the planning to visit a particular attraction, which is just mind-boggling to me, and really shows that there's a substantial trend toward empowering our children at a very young age. Now, if we look closely at how those children are participating in planning, you'll see that, not surprisingly, and really paralleling the experience of their parents, attraction websites tend to be the favored medium for those kids who are involved in planning visits to attractions on family trips. You can see that 57% of all parents said that their children were involved in visits to attractions were likely to visit an attractions website. But you'll also see that direct word-of-mouth recommendations, such as the sharing of experiences, is incredibly important as a medium for influencing attraction visit planning. It's still quite high, with 1 out of 3 parents reporting that their kids' friends have made recommendations on what to do and where to go on travel during travel planning. We've also seen, though, in the same research that PGAV and H2R did last year, that there are differences in how we as parents are motivating our kids to visit certain attractions. You can see that nearly 2 out of 3 parents said that their kids generally want to visit educational attractions on their own, and with only a quarter of parents that they have to make their kids, as I say, eat their veggies of the attraction world, that they have to make their kids be forced to visit educational attractions. Now, that would be wishful thinking on some parents' part, that we think that all of our, that 2 out of 3 of us think that they're motivated to visit educational attractions on their own, but at least that's what research is saying to us. Now, we have seen, though, that many of us as parents are still having to negotiate with our kids when it comes to visiting educational attractions. In fact, nearly 4 out of 10 parents reported that they had to trade something for it. Now, yeah, parents, we can say that there's a certain amount of shame in that, but I also think that that's a nice real-world admission. We are, in fact, negotiating even to go visit things that we think may be good for our kids, and that we, as parents, may want to visit ourselves oftentimes. If we look at that negotiation phase of parenting in terms of negotiating to visit certain educational attractions, it's evident at different ages for the two genders. So you can see for boys, it's most prevalent at ages 4 to 11, but for girls, it's in their teens, like my own daughter. And so you can see there are even some differences by region of the country, with those of us in the South likely to negotiate a visit to an educational attraction. So, again, differences by age and gender and among the negotiation that we do with kids. Now, that research also showed that there are really 6 roles that kids play as planners in terms of their planning to go on family trips or to visit attractions and plan certain activities. And those are, first, checks and balances, basically limiting our child's power to make certain decisions. So that power may be limited by logistics or by the budget for the trip, whether there's certain types of transportation being used. That may be used to, check and balances may be used to check our kids' power in terms of their ability to influence. This role is consensus. Basically, in that consensus model, where everyone talks through the decision on where to go and what to visit while on a family trip. The third goal is democracy. Basically, everyone, including the parents, gets an equal vote. Now, as a parent, I've always found that this is a particularly dangerous Pandora's box to open, but I will admit I've been guilty of that as well. Fourth is meritocracy. Basically, that as kids get older or develop their own expertise, if you will, that they become a consultant to parents in terms of making the decision on where to visit. The role that the kids play is apprenticeship, which is basically we use travel and the travel planning process as a training ground. And certainly this was one motivation behind my wife and I's decision to let our daughter weigh in on what we should do on our family vacation. And then finally is arbitration. Basically, it's the negotiation process. And all of us have probably been guilty of this at one point or another in terms of involving our children on where to go. Each of those 6 roles, our child can probably be involved as planners at different points on the same trip. And so they're certainly not exclusive by any means. So we look at selling to these empowered decision makers, our children who are involved in family travel. We recognize that children will not only be potential visitors to your attraction, but they're also likely going to be on your website. They're going to be asking their friends about you as an attraction, and they're going to be checking out what you're saying on social media. I think also, too, that there's ways for educational attractions to leverage the fact that they're oftentimes being negotiated as part of a family trip itinerary. And are there opportunities to, say, partner with an entertainment attraction, for instance, to provide a ticket package or a discounted pass that would make negotiation easier for parents? We're going to move next from the empowered child to another trend, the empowered attraction. Attractions actually have more power in terms of generating incremental revenue and profit these days than ever before. In some ways, this trend reminds me of when I started my marketing career years ago in consumer packaged goods. It used to be that manufacturers had all the power because they could tell the retailer what was being sold in their stores. But once retailers began using scanner data, it gave the power to the retailers, and so giants like Walmart were then able to leverage their enormous amounts of data for their own good. The thing is happening now in the attraction and activity sector. As many of you know, Disney has been testing its Magic Band this year. They recently reported both increased guest revenue and guest satisfaction during their test during the first half of this year of their all-in-one payment system and guest tracking system. But the value to Disney, I think to any attraction, is going to lie in the data that's collected. And only there are huge amounts of data being collected on every guest who uses that Magic Band Disney parks and resorts. I think that, though, this is just the beginning of big data finally coming to the attraction world. And as we look at the amount of data that's being collected, many attractions and activity suppliers have been collecting all sorts of data on guest behavior for years. But we've generally been pretty far behind, I think, other consumer segments in terms of data collection and management of that data to create useful insights. And I think that there's really 2 basic questions that attractions have to answer before embarking upon any program of data collection. First of all, what question are you trying to answer with that data, and what's the human cost of managing it and analyzing it? Of course, outsourcing is an option if necessary for many attractions who, particularly these days, tend to be very leanly staffed. Other questions that need to be asked as well, such as what are the priorities for that data? Is it going to interfere with the guest experience in any way in terms of the collection of it? How is it going to cost to collect that data? And then what ultimately do you hope to impact? I think too many attractions don't answer these questions, and the data either isn't acted upon or the collection of that data creates an imposition upon the guest experience. That imposition can occur either before, during, after the guest experience. Attraction. The real opportunity, though, for actionable guest data lies in the trend toward revenue management at attractions. And while revenue management sounds complicated, it's actually pretty simple. It's the use of customer data to predict guest behavior and guest actions, and then try to optimize the product availability and pricing of your experiences. Actually, as you probably know, been done for years in the airline business, of course. You pay a different fare depending on the time of day you're going to travel, the day of the week, your seat on the airplane, in the airport that you leave from. But we've seen it extended, of course, into hotels, into rental cars, and now, of course, even professional and college sports tickets and groceries, as a number of grocery chains are experimenting with different pricing for different groceries depending on what type of customer demographic you are. The great thing about most attractions is that they offer a very wide variety of business scenarios that are really suited to the application of revenue management. One example of revenue management that many of you are probably familiar with has been around for years. Most visitors to New York, for instance, know they can get cheap same-day Broadway show tickets at the tickets booth on Times Square. That may not be the best seats. It may even be a show that was your first choice, but Broadway has known for a long time that by putting seats for sale at that particular outlet, they'll hopefully fill the house on that particular night. I think Sarah Gilbert's going to provide us with an example later on of a revenue management tool that can be used by attractions. But there are a variety of different tools that are being used, and we'll talk about several of those here shortly. There are probably 7 what I call core concepts of revenue management that attractions and activities are increasingly using to grow their revenue and their bottom lines. Some of it is focusing on price rather than cost, use market-based pricing when determining not only the base cost of your ticket, but also the cost of other add-on experiences. All the segmented micro markets, not to mass markets. A number of you in the attraction business are already doing that. Save your products for your most valuable customers, basically making sure that your best products are generating top dollar. Decisions based on knowledge, which goes back to the idea of making good use of big data, to exploit each product's value cycle, recognizing that some of your experiences may be more valuable at this time and during this year than other experiences that are farther along in the product cycle. And finally, to continually reevaluate your revenue opportunities. This is something that I don't think we as attractions do a particularly good job of, which is to continually reevaluate, even on a daily basis, the opportunities for revenue management. Those has been this dynamic pricing, which is basically charging different customers different prices at different days of the week, different times of the year, even different day parts. And recently, the CFO of SeaWorld said just a couple of weeks ago, dynamic pricing and revenue management tactics and strategy have to be easy to understand, and that they have to reward a desired type of behavior. I think otherwise, we as attractions risk becoming like the airlines, where it's not clear what the reward is, or if there even is a reward for our customers. Some of these in which attractions are implementing revenue management techniques include guest segmentation and targeting, charging more for premium tour experiences, as I mentioned, dynamic pricing by different seasons, by the week of the month, or even day of the week. One of the goals behind all of this is to make bigger days bigger revenue days. If major customers are concentrated upon certain days of the week or certain days of the year to try and leverage the revenue from those particular guests. The key in all of this, though, is that we have the ability to test and measure and evaluate. We don't have to wait and see how pricing fares at Walmart or Walgreens. We have a real-world laboratory in our own backyard where we can test that. You'll see a little bit later on from Sarah that Picture.com's solutions include some incremental revenue for attractions with some of those solutions. That it also enables some of the one-to-one word-of-mouth marketing that we're all looking to operationalize. I'll also say, too, that while online ticketing is a great way to implement some dynamic pricing and techniques and revenue management strategies, and certainly online ticketing has been around for a while, I'm still surprised at the number of attractions and activity providers that aren't really taking full advantage of the channel as a revenue management forecasting or promotional tool. And that online sales now represent a large portion of many attractions, leisure transient ticket sales. Then it ought to be used for more than just being another way to sell tickets. It can be used for a wide variety of revenue management tactics and other marketing strategies. It's a way of securing guest commitment, of course, which is how many of you are using that channel. But it also encourages thorough visit planning. It's a good forecasting tool, and the opportunity to upsell during what's called the anticipation phase of visit planning, the time between when they bought that ticket online and when they actually arrive at your museum or theme park. Now, empowerment is not necessarily limited to children or attractions. Travelers as a whole are much more empowered to influence how they want their attraction experiences delivered, and we see this in a variety of ways. I get refer back to the research done by our partners at H2R Marketing Research, and one of the things that research confirmed is that most family travelers have as their top motivation for visiting attractions the ability to spend time together. And of course, we've heard about that for years. Even something as basic as getting out of the house ranks high as a motivator for visiting attractions. If you'll see that 66%, two-thirds of respondents that spending time as a family was their primary motivator for visiting attractions. But getting out of the house was important to almost 4 out of 10 families. Also providing a variety of experiences for both young and old guests ranks high. We know that motivations are always key to marketing, and so extending that attraction's brand to capturing experience even after the family has gone home. One of the things that we don't do a particularly good job of as attractions, staying in touch with our guests even after they've left and had a good experience. I think that spending time as a family and being able to leverage that is a good opportunity for many attractions, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. There are some differences, though, between how the facts that are important for motivating visits to educational attractions and for entertainment attractions. Family travelers have said that value for the dollar and educational value are the top two motivations, followed closely by being able to provide interactive or hands-on experiences. And families visiting educational attractions are obviously looking for different types of value for the dollar, but also educational value. And again, as we saw previously, sometimes they have to negotiate the ability to visit those. But interactive and immersive experiences are very important to families as well. What's notable, though, is the differences between educational attractions and entertainment attractions. For the motivations for entertainment attractions, as revealed in the Art of the Family Vacation research, showed that the families visiting entertainment attractions are looking first and foremost for rides that can accommodate the whole family. looking for value for the dollar, and even something as basic as friendliness, which, quite frankly, many theme parks don't always do a great job of training in frontline service. So we also see, though, that interactive and hands-on experiences also rank high for families visiting entertainment attractions, as they do for educational attractions as well. If you look at these expectations that travelers have in terms of their empowerment, there's increasingly a desire for many guests, particularly family travelers, to be what I would call up close and personal with their attraction experiences. It's no longer sufficient, for example, to be able to just look at animals behind the glass or through the iron bars, as a number of attractions have established experiences that really go beyond that and are really raising the bar. But sometimes I would say too that there may be attractions taking this to ridiculous lengths. There's a zoo in Argentina which has been labeled the world's most dangerous zoo because it allows its guests to come face to face with bears and lions and other dangerous animals. That's an extreme example, and probably a bit much for us in the U.S., where something like that is probably begging for a lawsuit. But we've also seen in the U.S. That there are a number of animal-oriented attractions that are increasingly developing visit experiences which allow us to swim with dolphins, to get up close and personal with penguins and other birds, diving without a single diving lesson or certification. These examples are from Discovery Cove in Orlando and the National Aviary in Pittsburgh. And as I said, many of these are raising the bar in terms of the kinds of experiences that are being offered at all attractions. This is something that's not limited to animal-oriented attractions either. I think family attractions to compete, they increasingly probably have to provide opportunities for guests to have a true one-of-a-kind visit that does offer an up-close and personal experience. My former employer, Biltmore Estate in Asheville, had behind-the-scenes tours and rooftop tours that allow guests to get up on the roof and see parts of Biltmore House that they've never seen before. Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex offers an experience for the last couple of years called Lunch with an Astronaut, which allows guests to actually hear from an astronaut, someone who's been in space, and to ask that astronaut questions and to meet them personally. And the key here is, though, to provide guests with what we call social currency. What that guest really wants is not necessarily to just swim with the dolphins, to be able to show and tell others that they swam with the dolphins. And we'll hear more from Picture.com shortly, but I think they have a type of solution that allows for to facilitate that need for social currency. Sarah, I'll let you talk about this briefly here, and then we'll get back to the rest of our presentation.
Sure, thanks, Chris. Just a quick reminder, if you have any questions, please go ahead and just put them in the chat box. Just real quick, and I know we've got a little bit more of the webinar, and this has been great information so far. I really love that term, social currency. It's very key these days. It's something that is almost like a pot of gold in marketing speak. But just to review some of the challenges that are current, the need to provide that social currency, which essentially would increase visits and have revenue. So that's a challenge as well. Also, the need to extend customer engagement after the visit. The customer can relive the experience. And to compete with the other attractions that have strong word-of-mouth promotion. How do you find that? What can you do to get that same level of promotion that you just can't buy? And then also, how to monetize some existing assets. And what I mean by that are images that are very powerful in promoting your destination. So just to real quickly present a solution that we have that's a very wonderful solution to any destination. I'd like to introduce the idea of Picture.com and what we're doing today. It's customized destination-themed photo books. So what you see here is somebody sharing a photo book, and if you can imagine on the front of this photo book your best picture of your destination. So, for instance, if you have, let's say, a family that's traveled to the Outer Banks of North Carolina recently, the Outer Banks is going to put together a photo book that has images of their land, everything in the Outer Banks, from the Brothers Museum to lighthouses to the wild horses. They're going to have images of that inside the book, actually, and what we're going to be able to do is offer that powerful imagery to customers to combine with their images. It's going to solve some of those problems we just talked about. It's going to extend customer engagement. It's going to let them relive the experience of being there. It'll combine their content with your professional content. It's going to be a brand champion for you. So it's going to enable that one-to-one word-of-mouth promotion, the social currency that we just talked about. So if somebody has that book, they might show it, at a dinner party or to your neighbors or to family, and then that's going to be the word-of-mouth promotion you're looking for. It's also going to drive revenue. And through new customer acquisition, and as well, we have a way to set up a revenue share for this. It's really easy to get set up. It's a way for you to control your brand, and it's easy to use. So if you really want to look at how logistically this works, this is a sample. So look up here at the top where it says Seaside Adventures. Now, that's the brand of the Outer Banks example I gave you. And that's where your logo would go. This is a landing page, and this landing page is going to be where you might send your visitors after the visit a URL on the back of the ticket stub. Maybe it's a link on the website, or even lucky enough to have their email address. It could be a follow-up email that you send to them, inviting them to create this special guest book. So they see quickly how it works. They'll this page that they can contact Picture.com for any help, questions, or concerns. So they're not going to go back to you as a destination for any general questions or troubleshooting. And they can click this Get Started button, take them direct into the tool where they can see the pictures that you have. So, we know that customers are willing to pay a premium to have access to professional photography that they didn't take. So you have the assets, these great pictures that you've spent money and time collecting, and at this point you're able to share them with your customers. So at this point, like I said, ask any questions you want to the chat box. I'm going to pass the baton back over to Chris and let him keep going for a little while, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. One of the trends that is empowering family travelers that attractions are using is VP experiences. Now, these VP experiences in some ways have been around for a long time and include a variety of different visit experiences, but they have increasingly become high-dollar experiences that may be limited in capacity, yet produce a higher dollar margin per guest. Some of the experiences, like for instance, what you see here, Universal Studios, nearly $300 VIP experience, that's $29 per guest, are nearly an all-inclusive visit, if you will. But many of their attractions are providing these types of VIP experiences on a small scale. And you can see they can range from everything from including premium parking and personal guides to unique souvenirs and behind-the-scenes tours. Again, these are examples of providing opportunities for social currency for guests. These experiences are likely to be the ones that are most shared with friends and family for many years to come. But they also address the guest need in an age of time starvation. The need to make the most out of their attraction visit addresses the need for them to streamline the information overload that occurs many family travelers during their planning to attractions. And it also creates an elite status for many of those travelers, people who want to stand out from everyone else and to have an experience that's very different from what is provided to most of their attraction visitors. And, of course, any experience like this, though, needs to be more than just about jumping lines. Usually there's an expectation of very high-touch, service-intensive experiences. Now, admittedly, I realize that some attractions are probably resisting offering these because they want to be seen as catering to an elite 1%, that they want to offer their guests the same type of experiences as much as possible for all guests. But no doubt, though, that these can be highly profitable and that there's certainly a market for them. And we've seen, certainly, again, the bar being raised at attractions like Universal and Disney who offer these high-touch experiences. Now, obviously, there are numerous technologies that are available to families at each stage of the visit experience, from consideration of destinations and attractions to planning the actual to the actual visit experience. And of course, many attractions still wrestle with how high-tech their visit experiences ought to be, particularly those attractions that are more either historic or natural or educationally based. And there are some attraction managers and owners that resist offering technology-enhanced experiences because they think that their parents, that the parent visitors, parent decision-makers, want their kids to unplug from technology while visiting these attractions. We saw that many parents say that their kids either don't have an opinion about technology at attractions, or their children definitely want the attractions they visit to incorporate technology into the visit experience. But what's most interesting to me is that the parents themselves, those of us who are also addicted to our smartphones, our laptops, and our tablets, want attractions to unplug. Only 14% of parents of family travelers surveyed last year by H2R Market Research say preferred attractions that attractions to limit technology entirely. And so this idea that we want attractions to unplug, to allow our kids to unplug, is rarely true. And again, it's us as parents who are probably encouraging this technology empowerment. For instance, we leave the car on road trips with all sorts of technological devices. And why wouldn't we? Many of us as parents started out on car trips as children with what I would call the original iPad, the Etch-a-Sketch. And that technology then evolved into 8-track tapes, Walkmans, and in-car DVRs. My graduation gift was a Walkman, which I used on a family trip to the Grand Canyon way back in the 80s. But you can see from some recent research that was done by Family Fun magazine and Choice Hotels International that 6 out of 10 of us are going to take between 3 and 5 tech or media devices with us on trips. A very large number of us taking multiple devices with us. That particular survey showed that 37% of us were taking tablets and iPads on family trips. I've seen that number even higher in some surveys in terms of utilization. Many family travelers obviously using today's technology in new ways beyond the family station wagon or minivan. And while I doubt that Steve Jobs envisioned that people were going to be taking their iPads with them to shoot photos of the Grand Canyon, that's exactly what many travelers are doing now. And our Magellan Strategy research at one family attraction recently showed that many of them are either immediately or soon afterwards posting the photos to social media. Quite frankly, being able to use an iPad to take photos makes it much easier to do that. But so, as you can see, a large number who are not necessarily doing so. Nearly 50% that said that they weren't posting their photos on Facebook, sharing their visit experiences on Facebook, posting videos or sharing experience on blog or on Twitter. Now, there are obviously, even since I've done this research, a number of new ways that people can share photos online. But in general, many people are taking photos at these attractions and not necessarily sharing their experiences online. U.S. Travel has done some research that showed that many travelers are indeed still taking photos using the same technology empowering devices, our iPads, our smartphones, digital cameras, and they're still buying souvenirs. In fact, USTA research showed that the millennial generation is actually more likely to purchase souvenirs than older boomers, and a majority of those empowered children of ours are probably still likely to share them in person, even though for many people 8 to 18 years old, there's a strong propensity for them to share photos and experiences via social media like Vine and Instagram and Snapchat than even Facebook. Many of them still like sharing those experiences in person. Now, as we look at the technologically empowered family, moms have always been an incredibly important part of the family attraction marketing process. Still are, obviously. As an ad agency I used to work with, Empower Media Marketing in Cincinnati called them, they are passenger seat navigators. They determine much of how we family travelers spend our time and money and where we go and what we do on family travel. And while moms are highly influential on social media, it's really the millennial mom generation that's especially active. We have obviously more technological tools than ever before to affect attraction planning, decision making, and to spread the word about positive and negative experiences, and spread the word on a highly personal level. And that almost takes us back full circle to our empowered children. The millennial generation is in many ways the most empowered generation that's ever traveled. Attractions are still trying to figure them out. They're obviously, as they've grown in number, become the fastest growing segment of travelers. They're a segment that a lot of attraction marketers are keenly aware that they have to begin to attract. While I think baby boomers still represent a huge opportunity for most attractions, millennials are obviously growing in importance. There's going to be more competition for them than ever before because, frankly, they're more likely to travel any place in the world. This is a generation that is likely going to grow up having a passport at a very early age. And I've even heard, though, among some of my clients who are attraction managers, particularly educational attractions, that they're assuming that millennials aren't or won't be interested in what they have to offer. And I think that's too broad of an assumption, though. We just have to find ways as attractions to power them with many of the tools that I've already discussed. This is a generation that is going to grow up being accustomed to things like revenue management. They can be a very important ally for a lot of attractions, but this is that the millennial generation has a set of expectations that are just different from any other generation, and being able to empower that generation, that segment, is very important. I'll just by saying, too, that many of those millennials are indeed still traveling with their parents and grandparents on multi-generational trips and visits to attractions. And we've seen this for years. We talked about multi-generational travel for a while, and this represents a collision of different worlds. It may be frustrating and even expensive, but many attractions now recognize that they have as many as 3 or even 4 generations in their theme parks, museums, and historic sites at any one time. That never happened before, and that represents a large number of different needs and wants. there are also a lot of similarities, too. And I'll just close by sharing a personal experience that illustrates this. Last entire family went to France to celebrate my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. What was fascinating to me as a market researcher and as someone who is very interested in family travel is how each generation in my family shared that particular experience with other friends and with other members of family. The common theme is that all of us relied upon technology. We all had smartphones, we all had iPads, we had laptops, we rented an old house that was equipped with Wi-Fi, but we chose to share our experience and remember our trip with images that captured that moment. And I think that will always be a constant. So my closing advice to attractions comes straight from the mouth of my teenage daughter again, which is to find your awesomeness as an attraction and use all of the tools that you have at your disposal to empower your attraction, your business, and to empower your family traveler guest for them to be able to sell it to their friends and family and to reap the rewards in terms of increased profit, visitation, and revenue from that awesomeness. So thanks for listening today. I greatly appreciate your time. Sarah, I'll turn it back over to you to close us out and to move into questions and answers.
Thanks. I love that. Find your awesomeness. What a fun way to close, and a great message and mantra just to wake up and live by every day, whether you're managing a destination, in charge of marketing for a destination, consulting, whatever it is. But at this point, what I want is to provide you my contact information. This is so if you would like to reach out to me for more information, I can do an individual demo for anybody who would like to see the Picture.com solution and how that works, where we're taking your brand and turning it into a combined your content photo book for your audience that would turn into that solution for word-of-mouth promotion and driving more visitors and revenue to your destination. But at this time, let's go ahead and take some of the questions that we have. One of the first questions that somebody asked was, how does Picture.com run to social media? Is it ready to integrate and work on social applications? And I'll go ahead and take that one. Yes, it is. So what we've designed it to be very social media friendly. We know that these are incredibly important channels, specifically, with the millennials that you just mentioned, for taking that social currency and, not only swimming with the dolphins, but posting it on Facebook immediately. So I would just like to mention that when creating a photo book, there's a way where you can take the images from your Facebook account and access them right there from the Picture.com page. And so if somebody's created an album along the way of the journey at the destination, they can take that the images and pop them right into their book directly from Facebook. So and you can share the book as well. So you can share the book on LinkedIn, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and others. And this exposes your brand, and it's a way without the user even printing a book where they can show everybody the images that you have from your brand. So hopefully I've answered that well enough. Let me go ahead and take one that we had for Chris. Chris, how much expertise does it take to address dynamic pricing?
I don't think revenue management or dynamic pricing really takes a lot of expertise. I think a lot of it comes down to understanding the visitation behavior that your guests demonstrate, and that could be as simple as looking at the patterns of visitation and understanding what's your desired strategic objective. Is it to move more of your visitors to weekday? Is it to move them from a Saturday visit to a Sunday visit? It doesn't require a lot of expertise. I do think it requires a willingness to be able to experiment and evaluate, and to rigorously evaluate, did you accomplish what you set out to do? I've seen attractions that have tested tactics in terms of dynamic pricing charging different pricing for different days of the week or different times of the year. And they recognized that they achieved a particular goal of moving visitation, but did not necessarily achieve a profit revenue goal that in fact cost them money. And it's obviously not what you want to do. So there's not, I don't think that there's a lot to be gained there. I do think that a lot can be gained by looking at what the hotel industry has done, and there are a number of examples, hotel seminars, particularly offered by institutions like Cornell, that specialize in revenue management for hotels, and a lot of learning that can be gained there if you did want to achieve some level of formal training or expertise.
Great. Thanks, Chris. So next question is, how much time does it take to get the solution ready? So I'll take that one, and very simply, 3 to 4 weeks. And it's some photo gathering, iterative process where Picture.com do most of the heavy lifting. And so, your time commitment is very small to that. So we estimate that probably all the activities take maybe 15 hours, if that. Some people have all their images ready to go and know exactly what they want to do, and it's few hours than that. So, well, the next question, and that's for Chris. How do we engage younger travelers to help them make the decision to visit my destination?
One of the key things here that I think a lot of attractions will wrestle with is, there's probably some ethical questions that are involved with directly targeting younger travelers. And I say that only because of the questions faced by a number of consumer marketers in other categories, where oftentimes they have been called out for targeting kids in a way that is exploitive or is perhaps encouraging them not to participate in healthful activities. I don't have as much to worry about there, but I think that the way to be able to do this is without being seen as being manipulative, is to provide tools that will help younger travelers really engage in the planning process directly. And a lot of the planning process that you see outlined on websites, for instance, is really geared more for the parents. I think that the ways, recognizing that many travelers are participating in the planning process for attractions, I think that there are ways to actively engage them in the planning process and make the visit part of their site more kid-friendly.
Great, Chris. At this point, we don't have any more questions. Unless anybody has any to pop in the chat box real quick. So go ahead and close this out. I just want to say a huge thank you to Chris for sharing your valuable insights with us and everybody on the call. And, I provided my contact information, and please feel free to reach out to me for any questions, and we will definitely follow up with everybody on this call with the presentation, the audio, and the content part of it so that you have it to refer to anytime. And thank you, Chris, and at this point, just stay tuned for future webinars. We're hoping to keep this going with other verticals and would love for you to join us. Thanks, everybody.
The person has disconnected. The conference will now end.